Okay, so I'll finish up this project and quickly say a few words about one or two other projects, much shorter than this. Actually, the museum finishes at the end with a letter. I somehow try to, because the thing with this speculative approach is, of course, that it's kind of a mind game as well, and you see how far you can push the boundaries of fiction, how far you can go with certain predictions, etc. And after a while, the audience really gets into the game as well, which is very much fun. But I somehow wanted to rupture the fictitious game and rupture also the very structural approach, because it's very much about mechanisms and institutions, etc. And I wanted to involve my personal voice as well. So I decided to write a letter to the father of a childhood friend of mine who committed suicide while I was working on this project. And he was a farmer, a tomato farmer. That's why I work a lot on tomatoes in the museum. He was a tomato farmer, and he basically worked his entire life to create this greenhouse project. The problem is, due to the competition from countries such as Spain, where you have thousands of illegalized migrants who often in very violent conditions pick fruit and vegetables, it's getting harder and harder to compete with this method of production. So we invested in a new sprinkler technology in order to innovate the greenhouse, hoping he would sell it a few years later on. But then the crisis really hit the agricultural sector in Belgium as well. The company building the sprinkler system went bankrupt, so we had to borrow money to ask another company to reinstall the sprinkler system. Then the crisis really hit, and he himself went bankrupt, even if it was not his fault that the other company went bankrupt. And then he committed suicide. And for a while I stopped working on the project. I didn't know what to do with it, because it's very easy to... I had been working for a longer time on this wave of what is sometimes called austerity suicides, which is very tricky to discuss, because from a medical point of view, that's a no-go, because it would mean attributing one very precise cause to a suicide, whereas we all know that a suicide is always a very complex concurrence of events. On the other hand, people really try to diminish the effects of what are called copycat suicides as well, which is something we've seen as well, especially in Spain, Greece, Italy, etc., where the news was full of pensioners shooting themselves through the head in front of the Greek parliament, people setting themselves on fire in front of the Bologna tax office, etc. On the other hand, the problem with the copycat suicides is when you introduce a press stop to no longer report on these copycat suicides or on these austerity suicides, it's also very easy to forget about the responsibility of policymakers for these austerity measures. So I found it very hard to position myself within this debate, but then when the father of a friend committed suicide, he was suddenly smack in the middle of it. I had planned to make this once again kind of parody of, you know, these 1990s spaces of commemoration, where you often you have like a concrete space with one tiny window where the light shines through and then it illuminates a monument. There's all the ones as well. You have the Neue Wache in Berlin, which illuminates this monument by Peter Kollwitz. There's a lot of them. So I had built a room, concrete room, with a little window and the light shone through, and I planned on building a monument. And like every week, my dramaturg kept asking me, okay, so where's the monument? And I kept saying, yeah, I'm working on it. To be honest, I was completely stark. And I think the day before, we were hoping to ask again, where is the monument? And then I decided to write the letter, which really became a huge rupture, as I said before, in how the museum functions. And then after this space, you end up in a bar, because every good museum has a museum bar. Usually, this is the one in Athens, usually what happens, like we close off all the light and stuff within the building. Once you get up to the bar, suddenly you have a view, you have light, you have oxygen, and there's drinks. I have a very nice selection of Eastern European distillates mainly. And at the bar, in most of the museums apart from Marseille, I was at the bar myself, so I served drinks, and then I don't tell people that I built the thing they went through, of course. And then we discussed the exhibition, basically. It just starts by explaining the origin of the plum distillate that they are drinking, and then you end up in a discussion. And the bar really came to function as a sort of micro-platform for European affairs, where I sometimes have somebody working in the European Commission who comes out of the exhibition crying and telling me that this is the first time ever that he considers that the thing he's been working for, I mean, the European Commission, they're the believers of the European project, of course, that this might actually collapse at some point. So I serve him a plum brandy. And later on somebody else comes out and goes like, these bastards of the European Commission, and then I tell them, hey, this is Tony, he works for the European Commission. And then they sit together and drink a plum brandy, and to me that is the beginning of a possible debate, however micro it is.